Welcome back to the channel. This video, I'll share a little bit of some high rocks prep training and then spend quite a bit of time discussing the Fullstrength Gyms model and the discussion we had this morning as a group. Let's get into it. 5 a.m., we're gonna chat, then we're gonna do a conditioning workout. Let's go. That lighting is crazy. Nice. We just had our meeting with the group and it went really, really well. Really grateful for the men, grateful for the feedback that they gave me, and I'm looking forward to kind of just condensing, crystallizing, distilling all of that into the system with Fullstrength Gyms. And we're gonna continue to evolve and improve, but it gives us a really good launch point, really good starting point to build off of. And I'll share more about those details as time goes on, but now I'm gonna go hit my hill runs, my repeats, prior to getting into the day. It is really cold, so I'm gonna go hop in the 4Runner, run, drive up to the hill, and then get after it. Almost to the hill. It's a nice gradual grade. I'm tired. I didn't go to bed early enough last night. Oh, I need to move. I need to move. I got cool pants on though. Got my cool running tights on, so, and my cool shoes, so that's gonna help. It's gonna help me go. 3:30, RP 9 out of 10. And then we're gonna go a 3 compromised, minute 30s. Minute 30 effort on the way up, RP 9 out of 10. Gonna be gassed at the end of this one. Three sets done. Now we hit them compromised. 20 air squats, 15 no push-up burpees, and then straight into the minute 30 hill. This is gonna torch. Oh man, that was awesome. The squat to burpee to run was perfect. It definitely crushed the heart rate. The quads were blown up from the squats and burpees. Great compromised running feel, and then the 3 strides at the beginning were fresh, were solid. Feels so much better than when I started. Did not want to do that at all, but we got it done. We put in a hard effort. We stack another brick. We keep rolling. Great training session. On to the next. Just want to take a few minutes and talk about Fullstrength Gyms and give detail into that vision, but also share with you what we talked about this morning in our meeting. And okay, so going into this year, it's 2026, I just have felt a strong need to really get on the same page with our entire group that trains here in the mornings. And we have 12 of us that train out of the barn, and initially started as Full Strength Father, and I just invited a few local guys to come train with me. And it's evolved, and it's changed and grown and been refined over the last year and a half to something that I'm really excited about. And this group itself, training with these men and seeing the changes that it's affected in their lives and my life, has really opened up the vision for Full Strength Gyms. So without this group, there would be no Full Strength Gyms, which is why I wanted to bring them in and have a conversation about what they like, what they'd change, what they'd improve. And I think it'll be a continual evolution, but with where things are now in my life at 37 years old, I'm extremely fortunate to be able to really do what I love professionally. So I'm able to design strength and conditioning facilities with Samson equipment and be involved in the R&D process with the team, love what I do with Samson. And that experience has been amazing. From the very first handshake agreement that I had with them when I was looking for dumbbells for my initial warehouse gym here in New Mexico, and till over the years just collaborating with them, again, like on a handshake style relationship, to now being on the team with Samson full force for coming up on just over 2 years. So I have that piece of what I do. And then of course, like ever since I started coaching in college full force on the floor, I haven't been able to get away from it. Like I've always just loved doing that. So it's just a part of who I am. And mainly working with athletes, high school athletes, college athletes, some professional athletes on the sports performance side, and of course, general population clients throughout that time. So being here with this group, men only, and just really honing in on impacting men as the primary demographic that I work with has just been awesome, because there's something really special about gathering a group of men to train together, physically train together, because it creates this bond, it creates this environment where we're all getting better together and we're all kicking off our day in a positive way. And this training group has evolved over the last year and a half, where we've implemented things, we've taken things out, and it's led me to see this vision for an environment that is based off of the collegiate professional strength and conditioning environment. So it's team training with a coach that oversees the program design and the training groups and the accountability. And then the group has within it rankings, within it cultural standards, things that are motivating and inspiring for the group as a whole, and team building activities, and all of these things kind of coming out of that core environment of the gym. And so Full Strength Gyms is a men's only team training environment. And what I want to do with it is to really refine the model, namely the standardization of the culture, the programming, the look, the feel, everything like that, and then be able to license that to other vetted individuals throughout the country so that we can grow this network of Full Strength Gyms and impact men. Because when you look at, statistically speaking, what we deal with in our country, fatherlessness and men's health in general, mental health, spiritual health, physical health, it's a key in us turning the tide against the negative trends that we see in families and in communities. And the gym is just a very powerful tool, powerful space where we can do that, in my opinion. Because when you get your body right, it translates into your mind and your spirit. And granted, they all work together, but that's what I found in my own life, is when I am active and moving and progressing physically, it's just so much more helpful from a spiritual and mental side to be able to have that, versus not having the physical component going and trying to affect change in the spiritual and the mental without that. So again, they all play together. But this morning was great, because what we've done over the course of the last, say, year and a half here is we've essentially tested standards and cultural structures within our group, and we've come up with, I think, some really good things. And so what the group suggested this morning was to double down on our attendance standards and to really make it a thing that you can lose if you don't hold a certain standard of engagement, which I really liked. I mean, that was a consensus across the board with our group. A couple other things that they brought up were timeliness, team building activities and sort of adventures or high adventures, service, different things outside of the gym, activities outside of the gym to create cohesiveness within the group. For members of the gym to participate in certain competitions throughout the year, whether it's like baton, we've got a few guys doing that this year, or whether it's a self-organized competition here at our gym or somewhere else, just having things on the calendar for guys to really push for was another suggestion that we have, which I thought was awesome. One of the other things we talked about was having the devotional structure, because we've had a couple different structures with that devotional structure. Because what we've been doing is having this touch point of a devotional, a prayer, and then a recitation of our code in the morning prior to training, which I really, really like. But we've gone through some different variations of that. So the men gave me some really good suggestions on what they think would be good there. And then really the insight that I have had, I'd say over the last 2.5 months with this thing, is realizing how important it is to have visual representations of what we are building and what we're after within the gym. It's like a classroom, essentially. When you have anatomy charts and charts of the globe, or you have a verse of scripture, you have a certain message that's on the wall, it can be referenced culturally, visually, and it's in the space creating that thought process, especially as it's referred to regularly. And you just don't get that when you don't have that going on. And so as I remodeled the office, I pulled down our whiteboards, which had attendance tracking checklists on them. And when I pulled them down, and then I went out of town for a couple of weeks, and then coming back, like what I've noticed within our group, and the guys identified this as well, is that there's been more of a lax approach to attendance because we're not physically tracking it in front of everybody. And so the big takeaway that I've had leading into this conversation, I was already thinking about it, but this conversation motivated this project even more, is to really standardize and make it super clear from a visual standpoint in the gym what we're all about, what we're doing. And so what this will look like is, I envision about the size of a flag. It's like a 3-foot by 5-foot board, and we can have multiple of those boards, but one of them will have a team roster, a gym roster. It's like a 4-inch by 6-inch plastic, placeholder that we can print off a picture, bio, goals of each member of the team roster. So you have the Fullstrength Gym, then you have Team Full Strength. So say in this space we have 15 guys, 5 groups of 3 per rack in a training session. Well, those 15 would be listed up there on the roster, and then beneath that roster we can have our gym standards and make them super simple, super duplicatable, but powerful. And whether it's standards or ethos or whatever word we want to use there, that becomes the reference point for us culturally as to how we operate. So this might include attendance parameters, picking up weights, organization there, showing up on time, training with intent, why we train, whatever it might be. So that's something I'm working on writing right now, because I think that'll be very important for us as a group to have visually. And then you can envision another board that would have like a grid with months of the year, all 12 months. And the grid then you can write in with a dry erase marker the names on the roster. So I've got 15 guys, 15 names. Then I've got, say January, I've got all the dates, like one, not necessarily dates, but say 1 through 16 numbered. And then every time somebody comes like to train, so Monday you check the box, Tuesday you check the box, coach takes roll prior to session, calls names, And if you're here, you're marked, that you've attended. And if you're not marked in attendance unless you send proof of your training session to the group and the coach, and therefore you can check your attendance box. So, because then the attendance standard would be, according to our group, what they want to have is 16 sessions logged per month as the minimum standard. Now our programming is going to run, say, 6 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, team lift, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, flex conditioning days based on what guys are trying to improve. Conditioning or mobility, different focuses. So there'd be a total of like 24 days plus that you could log. But the 16 would be the minimum standard. And then what we want to really, I think, define is, if you don't hit that 16, what happens and how? And there needs to be a little bit of an area where we can have some grace for a guy, but there also needs to be a clear cut, like, hey, you don't do this, you're off the roster. So there needs to be a way that you can lose your membership, and it needs to be clear. So that's something that if visual, right, my whole point in sharing all of this is if that's visual for guys to reference daily, then there's no gray area, right? So that would be 2 boards that I envision there. Another thing I really want to do in the space is to print off like 4x4 picture frames and start building out a wall of memories, basically, just whether it's post baton pick or like when we did the ascent this year, a picture of that, even just a Saturday training session, whatever it might be, we can just start stacking all these images of us training together, of our lives, just showcasing and showing living life and really maximizing our lives outside of the gym, because that's why we do this, right? So that's something I'd like to do. The code being on similar sized boards would be another really powerful thing. I'm trying to think here. Oh, of course, metrics, testing metrics could also be put up there. Of course, the full strength total ranking system. I had some really good feedback on that because in my mind, having a battery of testing metrics for progression is like just vital, but not everybody's going to value that the same, right? So if we've got our conditioning and strength tests and we've got our ranks and age brackets and all of that, some guys are going to care less about that than others culturally, and that's fine. Kenny shared some really good feedback on that today. He's like, you know what? I don't really care about the metrics as much. I just more generally just want to be lighter and feel better and have better flexibility, which I can respect. And then other guys are really into it. Like, I'm really into it. I really want to push my limits physically and be as well-rounded as possible. So I'd probably be like on the opposite end of that spectrum, which is, again, totally fine. So we need to determine culturally how we approach that testing battery. Multiple guys have come to me and told me that the testing battery itself, like when we do a full strength total testing battery, which takes 2 weeks to spread it out, or you can do it in 1 week, but that it's intimidating and it's a lot mentally, which I understand, and I've thought about that a lot. Even for me, having trained for so long, looking down the barrel of a week of testing, because I'm going to push myself super, super hard on that. It's kind of similar. You get butterflies like you do, before a big race, before a big game. So if you're looking at a 5K and you're going to do that, and you're testing that, and then a couple of days later you got like a max incline press or max dumbbell carry, like that can kind of mentally, that can be a lot for guys to handle. So one of the things I'm thinking about here, and this is based on Kenny's suggestion, which is great. He's like, when you have the different colors, like, the gray, the blue, the orange, the black, the gold for lazy bones, half Sturker, Sturker, full Sturker, Vikinger, or generally speaking, beginner, intermediate, advanced, elite, world class. He presented, he's like, why don't you attach a certain amount of points to a rank in a test, and then you have it's way easier to reference. You have like a points scale, if that makes sense. So like a 60 to 85 would be if your total points come out to a 60 to an 85 range, then you are intermediate in your conditioning or your strength or overall. So your goal would be to max out your points, right? And get an elite status in a certain test or a battery of tests, which I really, really like because the rank qualifications are confusing for people, to be quite frank. And the nomenclature or the naming of the tests is internally, like it's fun, right? Because it connects to the full strength or the full Sturker story of stone lifting, but it's not necessarily easy to interpret globally. Like it's something that has to be explained, right? So it'd be so much easier to just say, hey, beginner is 0 to 24 in this test. Where do you score, right? Or, just have that for people. Intermediate, advanced, elite, world class, like super simple descriptive point system. So I really like that direction, and I like it for a couple reasons. Number one, like I said, it's easier to grasp. But the other side of that is the way I'm leaning with the testing is to just weave it in throughout the year. And and potentially the actual testing is like less frequent. I mean, maybe you touch a max once a year, maybe you touch a 5K once a year versus 2 to 3 times a year. Maybe there's an option for more novice lifters to touch it more frequently if they'd like to, like it's voluntary. But in my spreadsheet database, all of those things live there. And then like in a quarterly meeting or every 6 months when I sit down, I update the participant on where their testing metrics are and what their current preparedness level is. So in practice, again, like, hey, we're gonna hit a 5 RM on incline press today. Gear up, get after it, go. They might PR, they might not. Hey, just so you know, in 2 weeks we're gonna hit a 5K on Thursday. Those of you who want to test that out, let's do it. And as long as when guys come into the gym, they get a baseline, that's what I really care about. And then maybe it's more of like just sort of instead of a rigid, hard testing date and hard requirements on that, it's more of a woven into the year. And strategically, we want to test this X amount of times per year as a novice lifter. If you're advanced, you've been training for say 15 to 20 years or, around 20, full force, maybe deadlift a true 5 RM 1 to 2 times a year. Depending on how advanced you are. Like for me, being more advanced on the lifting side, and I use that term very conservatively, versus conditioning, like running, because I haven't ever been a runner, maybe I want to test my miles 3 or 4 times in my first year really going, or whatever, right? So I think that, and again, I'm just brainstorming out loud here, I really like that direction a lot. I really do. Because then it's a framework for new members to come in and be tested in, and it's a little bit humbling, right? And it's something that everybody goes through. But then as we're training throughout the year, it gives some flexibility for the head coach of that gym to implement certain things at certain times. Because what I'd like to see, this ties into the Fullstrength Gyms model more deeply, is I'd like to see, so what I've identified in the boutique space is that owner-operator / head coach, like we have to have really defined roles here. We have to separate the owner operator side from the coaching side. Sorry, we have to separate the owner from the operator. And what I want to do with Fullstrength Gyms is create a dream job for a collegiate strength and conditioning coach. Particularly male collegiate strength and conditioning coaches who want to work with men. as the primary demographic, and they want to have less time working, make more money, and have a better quality of life and more flexibility and freedom and upside. And so, and I can share more details about the actual model itself in that sense going forward, but what I'd like with that population is, for example, as we have 5, 6, 10 of these gyms coming online and we've got 10 head coaches, that they have creative flexibility in program design. Now, we would all utilize the same sort of like testing and ranking system, but that could be innovated upon, of course. But then within the gym, you know, it's like, here's how we roll with this. Implement what you know and like bring your best to the table and have creative flexibility in that. Because what I know about coaches is that art of program design is something really personal. It's really cool. And, you know, we'll have a spectrum of guys with different experience and we'd all want to learn from one another. So it'd be a synergistic group of that coaching staff that could build on one another's work and what's working. But that being said, like pulling it back and saying, okay, what could scale here? We need to be able to have a coach that services for sure 48 athletes, 48 men as that base model. And then the goal would be 72 to 96 total members, depending on the square footage. Can a single coach handle 96 people? That's, depending on how they systematize things, that becomes a little bit of a challenge to get that 96 number. 48 to 72 is doable with the proper systems and everything just super structured. So the goal is to have a really purpose-built gym design that facilitates, you know, 3 per rack, potentially 4 per rack, although I'm not a huge fan of that, and with minimal square footage. And we're not going for high dollar square footage. We're going for kind of underground training environments, raw, and but of course, like the best of the best on the equipment side with Samson equipment, and just having it really built out in that sense. Like that's another thing that I bring to the table with this whole concept is to design these gyms and not have any, not have, like just have all that legwork already taken care of. So it's a huge resource when it comes to launching them. So, and I've got some other cool ideas with it, you know, pulling it back to the attendance side, the culture side, just having some fun things built in, competitions built in, apparel, prizes, flow. But I just keep, you know, as I've been envisioning this model for quite a while, I just keep whittling down how can I simplify this thing as much as possible. So that being said, what I've got cut out for me from a work standpoint is to, number one, deliver great programming and coaching for these guys right now in the mornings. But 2 is design and build out these initial visuals for the gym, what they're going to look like, how we're going to flow, and then create SOPs on what this looks like and create documentation around it. And from there, once we've got that like to a working where it's like the group feels really confident about it, I feel really confident about it, then it's a matter of what is this licensing, how do we progress the licensing element of this? I like the licensing model for a number of reasons, but what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to really vet who licenses it and how that happens. Because we won't have as much, like, it's not as restrictive as franchising, but we can be restrictive in who we allow to license it. And the first step, though, is probably going to be, this is something I've been going back and forth on, an actual brick and mortar location that I myself / team actually brings into fruition. This space is absolutely incredible for a lot of reasons, but maybe we need to go commercial before we license. Maybe we don't. Maybe it's enough to have 15 in here consistently with full documentation and just everything built out. And we can say, hey, it's plug and play. this works, let's roll and vet the market and really do the research on where we put them. But maybe that's viable. I don't know. It's something I want to explore a lot more fully. But really what it is it's a classic approach for me personally of nailing it before we scale it. And I've done a lot of different things over the years in this space, tested a lot of things, failed a lot of times, although I wouldn't call them necessarily failures. It's more of just learning lessons and moving forward with those lessons learned. That I feel like there's something really special with it, and that it could just blow up and be very, very positive for men in our country and around the world. So, it's been good to share those thoughts. Follow along. I'll be documenting more here on this YouTube channel. The school group for Full Strength Father, which I've got live right now, my goal with that is to just have that be a standalone resource for men who want to be involved in this community and grow with us. So YouTube, Instagram, I want to be active on those two platforms, although I really like YouTube from a publishing standpoint. But school is where you can find our community as we grow. The link will be here in the description for you. Check it out, request to join, and I can see you on the inside in there. But until then, keep following along. Give me a subscription. That sounds so demanding. Give me a subscription. If you would please subscribe if you so choose because you find value in this, that'd be awesome because it helps the channel. We want to grow this thing. So, all right, catch you in the next one. See ya.